I watch you all turn off the little got it, right? Recording in progress. Here we are. So a few things to share before we dive into moving together. First of all, what is it, December 3rd, 2022? It's a little orienting. Kind of amazing that here we've been practicing together online for several years. Kind of remarkable and amazing and beautiful and telling. And we've built a community, and that's what I'm so incredibly grateful for. If you are catching this on YouTube and want to join the experience of the live community, come join us for a class. Next class, by the way, is December 17th. You all can mark your calendars. Okay. So theme for today is, I had a hard time naming this one. I'm calling it the gift of presence. And I have a few different elements that are tied in thematically that I want to share. One of which is, I don't know if any of you listened to the Facebook live chat that I had with Jan Winhall through the Polyvagal Institute earlier this week. But if you didn't catch it, you can go find the recording of that on my Facebook page at Dr. Ariel Schwartz. And I shared in there a dream that I had about attending a yoga class. So if you've already heard this dream, you'll hear it a second time. And I had this dream. I woke up from it on Tuesday morning. And when I woke up, or in the dream, I'm on my yoga mat and I couldn't see the teacher. She was like, like there were students between me and the teacher. And I was kind of frustrated and I was looking to see what this teacher was doing. And then finally, when I was able to kind of get a view of what she was doing something really challenging that like didn't even look remotely comfortable for my body. And I was like, I don't even want to do that. And so finally I raised my hand and I said, with this like very vulnerable voice, I said, what happens when you're on your yoga mat and feelings of abandonment come up? And I started to cry in the dream, right? And it was so tender and so real and a little bit of a surprise that this depth of emotion showed up even in the dream, right? And the teacher responded in a most unsatisfactory manner. In the dream teacher was like the, I don't know, some kind of ego representation and responds like espousing some, intellectual response about imposter syndrome. And I was just like, no, that's not what I'm looking for. And I turned to the rest of the class and I said, I'd rather hear from them. And I woke up. And I think I share it with you because it's so much about why I love to be present and with you all, right? This gift of presence is hopefully I'm not that teacher in the dream, right? I mean, of course, we all have a part of us that can be like that, but really what I hope to come forward with is the deep openness of my own presence and my own knowing of what it feels like to be so deeply vulnerable and to know that wound in me, because knowing that wound in me allows me to relate to that in you. And to some degree, we all have that wound of abandonment or our own version of it. And so I start there in that quality of the gift of presence. The other sharing that I'll kind of name here is that I'm on the tail end of a migraine. I've had migraines for over 10 years. I mostly surrender and I mostly walk this journey with deep humility. It's another arena where I feel like if I kind of name that as a human first and say, I can know, a gazillion different vagus nerve, strategies to, to tone or splash cold water on my face, which honestly helps tremendously. And, and to do all of these things, but I can't necessarily escape my own suffering either, right? And that the practice that we do together isn't about eliminating suffering completely, because I don't think that that's possible. But it can reduce the suffering related to our suffering. It can reduce the amount of time we spend in our suffering. I truly know deep deep in my very fibers, every cell of my being, that this practice helps, right? That I can feel the relief that comes when something opens back up. And the experience I have around migraines, and I imagine all of us have some variation of this that we relate to in ourselves, it's like being stuck in a contracted space. It's like being, kind of like feeling how things get bound or contracted within me, whether it's in my diaphragm or around my chest cavity and the clavicles or shoulders, it's in my throat, it's in my jaw, it's around my forehead, like all of these places where I'm like, oh yeah, well, I know where the vagus nerve travels because I can track it when I'm in a migraine more than any other time. But we go into the contraction sometimes, and I can't quite find my way back to expansion until I get there. And then very often that shift happens back on my yoga mat. Maybe not for 24 hours or sometimes 36 hours through the process, but then there's this very definite shift where things open back up, very often with an emotional release as well. Anyone relate to this? Yeah, thank you. Right. So I share all of that perhaps to just name that we're not alone, right? You aren't, I am not. And I know that we're coming here together to practice together because of variations of these shared experiences. A little bit more, and then I'm going to share some poetry, and then we're going to go into some movement together and hopefully find our pathways to freedom together. One is that, of course, we are human beings, not human doings. And that the part of this pathway back to freedom for me is also like really holding space to drop into the felt sense of the being of who I am. And also, we're not necessarily human thinkings, whatever that version is. But, like we can over-identify with how we think, what those thoughts are, that intellectual part that says, I know the answer to all the questions. We can also over-identify with our roles or our actions in the world. And but I feel like when we enter into the space of practice, it's this incredible gift to drop into just the pure beingness of who am I? Who are you? And so we have brilliant minds capable of thoughts and meaning making, and there is a space beyond thought. That's what we're going to explore, a little bit of that entry point beyond the mind or that intellectual or egoic place. So it's my great wish that these practices invite you into that space, a felt sense of your own freedom and a connection to what we might call soul. And physically, today's practice, we're going to go into some very purposeful compression and contractions to squeeze around or go towards those areas of the body, as I've just been naming, also particularly in hips and shoulders. And then we'll go into the kind of freedom that comes with releasing out of that contraction and what feedback our bodies give us on the other side of that, what happens when we go back into expansion. And so in that process, we'll be both working through the lymphatic system and also finding some release across chest and collarbones and shoulders and widening the space around our hearts. So the gift that I hope awaits for us all there is some spaciousness in presence and the space of being. With that said, take a moment and tune into what has brought you here. Perhaps it's relating to the places in your life where you get caught in contraction, where you might get a little stuck there. Or the places where maybe you feel cut off or distanced from yourself, kind of overly caught in that egoic mind that believes it has all the answers figured out, but sometimes even ignores your own felt sense. And knowing that these are simply part of the experience of being human, and that None of us are doing anything wrong when we get stuck in those places. In your own comfortable place, whether you want to receive the poetry seated or laying down, I invite you to receive 2 poems today, 2 poems. The first one is called Come to the Fire, and it's by Garbriel Kram. Come to the fire and set down your answers, that you may ask again. Set down your certainty. Come feel the warm lick of the flames, watch the dancing light, without naming it, without making it into something known, without pulling it up out of the rooted mystery of this moment into the dry archival card catalog of the mind. Come to the fire and be captivated by its warmth and its strangeness, by the never knowing which way its sparks will trumpet in the changing night wind. Come to the fire and be captivated by its warmth and its strangeness, by the never knowing which way its sparks will trumpet in the changing night wind. Come to rekindle the memory in the joints of your feet, their primeval pads tracing forest corridors down from treetops, the memory in your blood knowing of a time when we sat gathered like this, close together, all of us, telling stories to weave a cocoon of home against the yawning cavity of the dark night shadows, vast and grotesque as monsters, high above points of brightness so clear and remote, austere and perfect as sentinels. Do you remember this once upon a time in your body? It doesn't have to be the past. Come to the fire, to this moment, waiting to be born again. Re-remembered. Come home, please. Come home. And our second poem, Of Mere Being, by Wallace Stevens. The palm at the end of the mind, beyond the last thought, rises in the bronze distance. A gold-feathered bird sings in the palm without human meaning, without human feeling, a foreign song. You know then that it is not the reason that makes us happy or unhappy. The bird sings, its feathers shine. The palm stands on the edge of space. The wind moves slowly in the branches. The bird's fire-fangled feathers dangle down. Right. Let's have some fun with all of that. I already feel something opening up. I'm so grateful. Okay, I'm going to shift to my mat. I will put the names of the poems at the end. And I'm going to move back to my mat. I'm going to switch my view. And I'm also going to recommend that you have some kind of strap for today. Blocks are always good, but if you don't have a strap or a towel or a little something to grab onto, it could be helpful for today. Okay. And I'm starting us off today in a child's pose, and we'll also be spending some time sitting on our heels right afterwards. So I will name that that's a bit of a knee intensive shape. right? And so if it's not right for you, adapt. You can take your knees wider. You can use a bolster between your hips and your heels, just finding a way that allows you to come in as comfortably as possible to your body as we begin practice. And if you are indeed finding your way into child's pose, perhaps to start, sending your hands back, letting your head rest onto something. And if your head doesn't reach the floor, you might place a pillow or a block to find some comfortable support. And with the hands wrapped behind in this shape, we sometimes refer to this as embryo. You can perhaps imagine here the teeniest, tiniest little earliest beginnings. And of course, a time and space in which we all began in a very contracted shape. And nonetheless, the seeds get planted. And sometimes those are seeds of love and welcoming, and sometimes not. And we have a story to unwind if that's the case. But as we begin again, as we consciously enter into this shape on your mat in this moment, you get to plant some new seeds. We also sometimes in yoga refer to this as bija pose, the seed pose. So connecting to your breath, connecting to your intention for practice. And I will offer up the words, I am present. And I offer the gift of my presence. I receive the gift of my presence. And staying largely in the same shape, if it's working for you, I'll invite you to bring your arms forward, just your arms, and then placing your palms together, like in a prayer pose, and then drawing your connected hands to the nape of your neck. And you might walk your elbows a little bit more forward here, depending on how much sensation you want. And then a little bit more of an intentional breath into your shoulders, into your upper back, maybe your hips, wherever you're starting to feel some sensation. Maybe that's calling to you for your breath. And then slowly releasing your hands and walking your hands towards your knees as a way to begin to bring your upper body upright. Let that transition be nice and slow, as if you're kind of pulling the weight of the earth along with you so that you still are rooted or feel some of that heaviness even as you lift up. And then a connection to breath. Maybe the Ujjayi pranayama, the quality of that slight constriction in your throat. If you were breathing out your mouth, it would sound like, or like you were fogging up a mirror. And we send that same quality of the breath in and out the nose. And then some gentle spinal movements here. And if you need to come off of this position on knees and ankles, switching to cross-legged is absolutely welcome. And if you're comfortable staying here, we'll find some spinal movement in this shape. So this shape sometimes referred to as um, Vajrasana, or the lightning bolt pose. And you can imagine here that your lower legs here are kind of in the shape of the lightning bolt. We get a little bit of that in Utkatasana as well. And that feeling of kind of gathering your own energy onto yourself through that compression in the joints. And then a little bit of freedom in the movement of your spine. Continuing to find your breath, inhale forward and exhale round. Two more like that. Good. And then the next time we come forward, I'll invite you to lean off your heels for a moment, enough to tuck your toes under and to come back sitting on your heels. So a different variation of the same posture. This time we refer to it as toes pose. We're opening up through the bottoms of the feet, and you might settle your hips onto your heels a little bit. I'll also invite today a clasping of your hands behind your back, a drawing of your shoulder blades towards each other, a rolling of your shoulders back. You can even take your chin slightly back, stacking your ears above your shoulders, above your hips, above your heels and toes. Connecting to breath again. And if clasping hands is ever not attainable in your body, no worries, a strap can be used right here. And then we'll unwind, maybe rotate your shoulders one direction and the other, and kick out your feet for a moment. You can even lift both feet, balance on your knees for a moment, and you can rotate feet in one direction and the other, rotating around your ankles. That might feel good right here. And then shifting back, sitting onto your heels, and a little bit of a knee lift. So one side and the other. We're not here too long. The invitation is to feel an opening across the front of your ankle and shin. And you can do one knee at a time, or some of you might lean back, balance, lift both knees. You can lift and lower your knees, a little playful here. And like I mentioned, not here too long. We're going to come right up and over into a tabletop. And again, you might rotate out through your ankles in one direction and the other. Lovely. All right. From here, a little bit of a just flowing cat-cow, and you can find your own rhythm here, or you can move with me. Inhale, lifting head, tail. And exhale, and you can curl round your back. You might even tuck your toes under for this one. And then inhale, maybe you send your toes back, lifting head, tail. And exhale again. Beautiful. One more time each direction, your rhythm. And then returning to center. And this time, invitation to take a C curve of your body. Maybe if I show this from the side, we're kind of gazing over one shoulder and then gazing over the opposite shoulder. And then these C curves, you can send your hip in that same direction. You might even play with lifting the opposite foot. So you can kind of gaze at the toes. If I'm looking over my right shoulder, my left toes lift and vice versa. And then connecting to breath and movement. And you might even move a little bit more rapidly, so play with that. Feeling that contraction in the side body, going for it. And then returning back to center and just wiggle it out for a moment. Good. From here, invitation to send your right arm up and then thread the needle through, taking right shoulder to the earth. And you can either keep your left fingertips or left palm rooted, or you might take your hand to your sacrum or even kind of half bind across your back. And in this shape, perhaps closing your eyes here if you'd like, and feeling your way into that contraction in your right shoulder for sure, maybe your left shoulder if the arm is bound. Feeling that twist in your spine and the sensation of your breath moving through. And we'll unwind and unbind. Hand plants, unwind through your right arm if you'd like. You can twist out through your wrist for a moment. And placing right hand back down. We'll find this on side 2, lifting through your left arm, threading underneath, planting left shoulder and head. You can keep the right hand on the earth. Maybe lifting right arm or draping across. And just finding your way in. Noticing whether you're oriented more to thoughts or sensation or emotion. And there's no right or wrong answer, just noticing. Noticing if the thoughts are there, the quality of your thinking mind. Coming in with curiosity, even there. And then we unwind, hand to earth, freeing left arm. You can rotate around the wrist if you'd like. And then back to earth. Okay. So from here, invitation to take your right leg back and behind and exhale, right knee under. Inhale and exhale. Inhale and exhale. This time, reaching back, we're going to plant the right toes to the earth and a few rocking motions here, breathing into your right calf, hips. And then a little bit of a balance. So pressing down into your right foot, just enough to lift your left knee for a moment. Feeling this 3 points of contact in a plank. Notice what has to kind of rise up to support you in this shape. And then we're going to drop the right knee a little bit closer to center, and left knee, and then send your left shin over to the right, enough to then slide your right knee behind your left. And here we are going to slide back somewhere between the feet. So we're making our way into a Gomukasana. Okay, knee above knee, feet are wider. And guess what? Different bodies, different variations in this shape. So your knee might be quite a bit higher, right? And finding just a variation. If you prefer some other alternate variations, you could stack into fire logs where knee is somewhat stacked over the opposite ankle, or you can simply take a cross-legged shape in this moment with the left leg over the top of the right. So whichever version you're taking, finding your way in. And with this Gomukasana, at least as an intention of a of a shape in the legs, we're going to take kind of the classic arms as well. And here's where our strap can be helpful. So in the arm shape, we're going to bring the right arm up and the left arm down. Now you can have that strap in the right arm as a way to support then reaching back with your left hand to take hold of that strap. And then using a little bit of that resistance of the holding of the strap to begin to feel that contraction, that compression in your shoulders, and the opening across the front of your chest. As some of you might want to reach down and clasp hand to hand behind your back, if that's in your practice, go for it. Whichever shape you're choosing, whichever variation, I want to encourage you to really let your head kind of press back a little bit rather than round forward to find the shape. So finding your breath here, particularly into that contraction that might be bringing up in your consciousness of your left shoulder, maybe in your right shoulder, wherever you feel this. One more breath here. And then releasing it out, you can set the strap aside for a moment and just kind of rotate out through your shoulders, wiggle them. You can wiggle out through your arms a little bit. Good. And then a similar shape, we're going to lift left leg and draw the, left leg, and draw the right heel a little closer to your hips. And now I'm preparing for a seated spinal twist. And in this seated spinal twist, I'm going to invite you to start the twist without using your hands to facilitate it. So just twisting towards that lifted left leg, towards the left. And then from there, if you're kind of not using your hands to yank on the twist, then just placing your left hand down and lifting your right arm up and then placing it somewhere. So maybe you might hold on to your right knee. You might place elbow around the outside. There's no need. And in whichever version you're taking, I'm actually going to invite you just to take your right hand to your left clavicle for a moment. And you can lean back a little bit into right hand, left clavicle. We can lean back into that left hand a little. And then using your right hand, just give a little bit of a self massage underneath your collarbone. And you can use your kind of fingertips tracing the line under your collarbone, or you might use your palm a little bit just to press and massage and open through this upper left chest quadrant. Connecting to breath, and then maybe releasing that massage and just holding the twist. You might take your gaze towards the left, your chin towards your left shoulder. And we will unwind here. As we unwind, I'll invite you to lift your left leg and a few rocks of your left shin, your left hip. And you might take that into a deeper compression by clasping hands together, placing knee and foot into your elbows, but neither is better nor worse or right or wrong. A few rocking motions here. And then perhaps beginning to find a little stretch of your leg. And you can use your strap here as well, so that if you use your strap around your leg, you can kind of open up a little bit in one direction. You can even switch the strap in your hands and open up the other way. Just feeling the length of your left leg, a little bit of a very open twisting action in your spine. And if you're not using strap, it might look like clasping your toes and opening one direction, and then clasping your foot in the other way. Remember, it's all about what feels right and good to you and not forcing anything. And then from here, I'll invite you to soften that left foot to the earth, left leg long here. And then reaching forward and rolling back out. A few breaths here into a forward fold and then lengthening. Beautiful. We're going to find that also into the side body. I'm just turning my body so you can see a little bit. So you might lean side body towards that left leg. And since it's early, just honoring your range of motion. And then this time, we're going to lift up, plant right hand, and maybe lift your hips so that we can go between, and you'll come back around. We're going to come back around to that forward fold, and then up and around, lift and open. One more like that, feeling your way into this contraction and the lift. And as we sit hips back down, one more on this side. We're going to lean into right hip, enough to bend left knee. And we're in a deer shape here. And we might follow that twist around to the right and back down. And to the right. And you might even let the left arm follow along. Lovely. Okay. So we are going to make our way back to tabletop, and you can just simply roll over your legs. Or if you want, you can take both feet in front for a moment, take a few rocks on your spine. And then eventually rocking up and over your shins. We meet back in tabletop and we'll find our way through that sequence on the second side. All right. So from tabletop, we will start by sending right leg back. And we're going to switch that out. We're going to send the left leg back. Let's make sure we do the other side. And exhale under. And inhale. And exhale. Inhale. And exhale. This time sending your leg back, planting your toes down, a few rocks, opening up through the calf on your left leg. And then pressing into hands and your left foot to lift right knee. And then just noticing, what does it require of you to hold this shape? We're not here too long, but just feeling that bit of contraction, that action here. And then we're going to settle right knee down a little bit closer to center, sending left shin out and sliding, right shin out to the left, sliding left knee back to the right. I'll tell you, these pretzel moments, they get my brain they works my brain. What's left, what's right. Okay, so we're in a Gomukasana once again, or your variation. Either knees are stacked, shins are stacked, or you've got the right leg in front of the left. And we'll find our way into arms. This time, left arm up and over, sending the strap back if you're using the strap. Right arm reaching around and behind. And finding your way in, noticing left and right shoulders or elbows, where these contractions are held. Coming back to breath. Beautiful. Unwinding here. And it's the right leg this time that we begin to rock. And you can keep a nice wide rock. Or you might draw this in a little closer. Rocking the baby, breathing into your right hip. Very likely a place you'll feel this. And then your variation with or without the strap coming into those leg stretches. So you might lengthen with one hand and then switch hands. Or if you're using that strap here, you can kind of hold the strap in one hand and switch there. And what's lovely about this is we'll greet the back of the leg, as well as the IT band, especially as you're kind of twisting toward the leg. And you can find those little nuances of pressing your heel away or where your toes are pointed that will awaken different sensations in your leg. And then from here, sending right leg long. And a few breaths in and out of that forward fold. Just kind of greeting the sensations in your right leg. And we'll do that similarly, leaning towards the right leg. And you can stretch and reach and lift up and out. Side body. And this time it's the left arm that will come up and around and over, planting left hand and maybe lifting hips and arm. And then settling back down. You can come back towards that fold and then the opening. And turning in, lifting, expanding. Beautiful. This time as we settle hips, leaning into left hip, enough to bring right foot back and around. So we're in a deer shape, and we'll naturally have space to twist towards the left and back to center and to the left and center. And you might bring your right arm with you. Lovely. Last one. Okay. From deer, this time invitation is to bring both feet in front, and indeed we will lay on our backs in preparation for a little bit of core, although we have a little bit of hip opening there as well, or contracting, however you want to think about it. Okay, we'll start with the contraction. So right knee towards your right shoulder. And this is classically referred to as wind relieving pose or Gomukasana. And we're compressing through the ascending colon and other digestive organs here. And you can stay just like this. I'm going to offer up a variation, which is to bend left knee. And we're going to send the left knee down towards the mat and left heel towards your right buttock. And you can use your right hand for a moment to place it there, but then using right hand on right knee, sending left leg long and right arm up, or excuse me, left arm overhead. Which limb, which side? All right, so we've got an interesting shape here, and it's a lot. So just be gentle with yourself and what you might be noticing on the front of your left leg. Oh, we're not here too long, just a breath or two, greeting the sensations, wiggling your attention in there, sending your breath in. And then we'll unwind that compression. Left leg long. We're going to send right leg long as well and crossing at the ankles. Right ankle crossed over left. Hands behind the back of your head. And now we'll get into a little bit of contracting the core. Exhale, lifting upper body, and inhale to lower. So feeling how you can, in this position of the legs, really squeeze the whole midline of your legs. One more like that. And then lowering down. Now, I like to grab the mat for this transition, but you can, of course, uncross your legs. But if you want to keep your feet crossed and lift them up, let your hands grasp your mat for that transition. It just creates a little bit of support. Once you're there, hands behind back again, and then clamshell. So knees, elbows can come to touch. We're going to open on the inhale and exhale, contract. And you can decide that range of motion. So the wider the range of motion, the more challenge on your core, and you can send your feet further forward or down to the earth, or keep them hovering. Beautiful. From here, lower the left foot down and right ankle across the left thigh. So you might stay with the left foot planted, and I'll invite you to start this process that way, or we might lift the legs, and I'll show that in a moment. We'll exhale to the right and inhale to open. So if you choose to lift the legs here, we'll take the left foot off the ground and can send that at a kind of 90-degree angle here and shin parallel to the earth. And then sending your right knee away. So we're still getting a little bit of a figure 4 stretch into the right hip, even as we're focusing on the obliques and the core. Last one like this. And then lowering down on this side, an invitation to either clasp the back of your left leg or upper leg or your shin, and then finding your way into a figure 4 stretch. And when we're doing a figure 4 stretch, it is always wise to check in with your knee, especially your right knee, and flexing your right foot will be most protective on your right knee. And we will unwind from here, releasing your left leg. Your right leg will come long, and left leg now in towards that compression of wind removing pose on the left side, especially emphasizing compression over your descending colon and other digestive organs. So in this practice, not only are we going between certain contractions in joints of your body, but also different nervous system states of action and receptive settling. And you can stay just like this, or maybe bending right leg, taking right foot towards left hip. You can use your left hand to help anchor that there. And then left hand onto left knee as right arm comes up overhead. And reaching right knee away, reaching right fingertips away. And breathing into sensation. As we Go between lifting heart rate and letting heart rate settle back down. We build nervous system flexibility. Hopefully, nervous system doesn't get stuck in those contractions for too long either. Okay, and let's unwind here. We're going to send right leg long, left ankle can cross the right. Here we are, hands behind the head, and exhale to lift and inhale to lower. Beautiful. From here, we're going to lower through upper body for a moment. You might grip the sides of your mat to slide your legs up. Maybe your whole mat comes with you. Okay, slide your legs up, hands behind your head, and we'll find that contraction into clamshell, elbows, knees. Inhale, open to your range of motion. Beautiful. 2 more here. And then right foot to the earth, left ankle across right thigh. You can start by keeping that right foot planted if you'd like. And we'll exhale to the left and inhale to open. And maybe taking your right foot off the earth, finding a little bit of that beginnings of that figure 4 hip opener here as you continue to awaken through the obliques. One more like that. And then into a figure 4 stretch, supine stretch here, either behind your right hamstring or grasping your right, clasping around your right shin and taking a few breaths. You can flex the left foot this time, protecting your left knee and maybe reaching left hip a little bit further down towards the earth. And we will unwind this time, hands behind your knees and a few rocks on your spine. So a nice, long, slow warm up, what my body needed today. We're going to roll up and over the shins, and I'll invite you to come into your first downward facing dog. And so if you're new to my classes and new perhaps to taking a full 90-minute class, I will just invite you to know that at any point you might say that was plenty for me today, right? Depending on state of your body, time of day, time of year. The second portion of class will be a bit more active, and you can opt in or opt out at any point. So in our downward facing dog, maybe taking your dog for a walk. Just alternate lifting and lowering your heels. And then we'll find a little, I don't know, like skiing action here, bending both knees and sending them one direction and the other. You can send your heels in the opposite direction of your knees as your hips kind of descend towards your heels and back up. Good. And then returning up to center, we're going to shorten our downward dog, taking a good footstep forward with each foot. Widen your downward dog, so feet are wide to the edges of your mat. And then perhaps taking right hand around and under, taking a hold of your left ankle or shin, and then maybe a little gaze underneath. Give your neighbor a smile. Hello. Okay. And then plant the right hand and we'll switch it out, twisting the other way. And unwinding here, gazing forward in a nice, slow, savoring walk to the front of your mat. Once you arrive there, we'll find a halfway lift and a fold. And your way to standing, you can roll your way up to standing, or you can come up with a long spine. And once you arrive in standing, maybe a few rolls of your shoulders. Very different relationship to gravity than what we've been in. And perhaps once again, kind of feeling as though you can pull the earth up with you so that we're still nice and grounded, even though we're nice and tall. Okay. We'll have a few variations of side bends in our standing shape, and you can choose. I'm going to keep hips about hip width apart, or feet hip width apart. And if you want your feet together, that's up to you. First variation is to take your left arm up and over. So your left hand is kind of at the nape of your neck again, or perhaps at the kind of very upper portion of your back. And then right arm, right hand to your left elbow, and then just inviting movement over towards the right. Side bend here. Connecting to your breath. And then we lift and we'll switch it out. Okay, you might drop your hands in between and then right hand back, left hand, right elbow, and we lean to the left. Your gaze can be down, ahead, lifted. Beautiful. And we'll lift here. Releasing hands for a moment, shoulders. All right, next variation is left arm lifts, right hand clasping left wrist. Again, feet can be hip widths or so apart. And then we're going to lean to the right. And as we lean over to the right, gaze might be down or forward or slightly lifted. Breathing and noticing sensations, maybe in left side body or shoulder. And then we come back up and switching it out, clasping right wrist and over to the left, down, ahead. Beautiful. We'll lift back up. And last one of these, little variation here, we're going to clasp the left wrist. And this time, as we lean to the right, we're going to curtsy step left foot behind the right. And you might gaze down. I particularly like gazing down in this one. Just feel that little curtsy action, little contraction in the right side body, and an opening in the left shoulder, side body. We'll lift back up. And feel your way in on this opposite side. So left hand clasping right wrist, right foot steps behind. And breathing. And as we lift, we'll release the hands. A little rotation of the shoulders here. Inhale to sweep your arms up. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, halfway lift. And exhale, planting hands, stepping feet back, pausing for a moment, high plank. Feeling once again the strength that's required of your body to support you in this shape. And then we'll lower down to the earth, either in one fell swoop or knees down, chest down, chin down, arriving to the earth. Our first shape here is to explore a wide-armed cobra up onto your fingertips, okay? And then in this shape, you don't have to lift too high, but we're going to find some shoulder dips, dipping left shoulder down. Inhale, dipping right shoulder down. And a few more breaths side to side. Lovely. Through center, back down to center. This time, elbows under shoulders into a Sphinx. And allowing yourself to just feel your way in. If Sphinx creates discomfort in your low back, take a moment, lift your hips, lengthen through your tailbone, lengthen through your low back, and keep the abs engaged as you settle hips back down. Notice the shift. And Sphinx frog. So some of you know, one of my most favorite shapes here. We're going to bend through the left knee 90-90. And for a moment, taking the right toes tucked under, a little heel rock like we did earlier. This time, let that rock really transition into your hips. Notice how your whole body gets to go for a ride with the rocking motion. And then untucking your toes, left hand out to the left. And if you'd like, gaze over your left shoulder, greeting your left knee, your toes, and back around, and a few breaths like that. And back through to center. Unwind leg, replant left elbow, wiggle your hips, hallelujah. And we'll find this on side two, bending the right knee. You can tuck the left toes under, and for a moment, just giving yourself that rocking motion. You might even take your head and just release the muscles of your neck for just a moment. And then finding that lift of the head, untucking the left toes, and right hand can plant out to the right as you gaze over right shoulder into the twist and back down to center. And a few more breaths like that. And then we come back through to Sphinx. Right leg long, widen the elbows for a moment, settling forehead down onto your stacked hands. You can even point the toes out if that feels comfortable in crocodile. Maybe wiggling your hips or just settling into stillness for just a moment. And if and when you feel ready to move on, we press into hands, enough to lift the head, hands under shoulders, through a tabletop, into downward facing dog. And from downward facing dog, a gaze to the front of your mat. And once again, you can walk or you might be ready to hop there, depending on where your body is today. Finding a halfway lift, lengthen. Exhale to fold. Inhale all the way to standing. Arms up overhead, clasping left wrist. Curtsy to the right. Inhale, clasping right wrist, curtsy to the left. Coming through center. Exhale, open the elbows wide for a moment, just lifting through your heart. Inhale, long mountain. Exhale, fold. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, hands plant, stepping back. This time an option, high to low plank, although you can come to the earth for cobra. Whichever version you choose, stay in integrity for you, maybe a chaturanga, maybe an upward facing dog. Exhaling, downward facing dog. Maybe sigh something out, a release, a letting go. And as we prepare to come to the front of the mat, decide how you would like to get there. Finding your way to the front, finding a halfway lift. Exhale to fold. Inhale to standing. And exhale, Samastitihi for a moment. Equal standing pose. Feeling the support of your feet beneath you. Maybe palm to palm in front of your heart. Maybe feeling your heart beat in your chest. And our next shape is a little variation on that curtsy step. So we'll find it through as a kind of a combination of Utkatasana and that curtsy. So we're going to bend the knees. We're going to step left foot behind the right and left elbow to the outside of your right knee. So it might look a little bit like, I can turn and talk here, a little bit like this. So you can take your right hand to your sacrum. You might even make a little shape with your hand like it's your tail. Okay, good. And then from that shape, here we are. We're going to lift back up, mountain. Let's find it on the other side. Right foot curtsy, right elbow to the outside, a little tail here with your left hand. Let's find that side to side just to get that in your body. Inhale, mountain. Exhale, curtsy twist. Inhale. Exhale. One more time each side. Isn't that a fun shape? Good. Let it be a little playful here. And then back up through to center. And exhale, forward fold. Inhale, halfway lift. And your way to downward dog, right? So some of you might say, I want to hop back, right into that chaturanga shape. Some of you might step back, take it to the earth, or skip all of the above, and just meet us in downward facing dog. Some of you are in Shavasana already. Well done. From downward facing dog, invitation is to bring your right leg back behind you. And exhale to step forward and through, lowering left knee to the earth. Inhale in this shape, and we're not here too long, but if you want to pat under your left knee, always welcome. We're going to draw arms up overhead. And then from here, clasping left wrist, leaning to right. From here, just like we were in dragon, taking left elbow outside right knee, right hand to sacrum, similar shape. And maybe staying with left foot, left knee grounded, or lifting left knee here. Right? You can still give yourself that little tail with your right hand. And then from here, big move. We're going to open all the way up, lifting left hand, follow, lift it through exalted warrior. And exhale around to warrior two. A lot in there. Take your time. Once you're in your warrior two, just finding your way into the familiarity of this shape of your body and gravity. And if you'd like, inhale to reach away. And exhale into an extended side angle. So ideally, even at this stage of practice, there is a quality of effortlessness, just like when we were on our back doing those hip opening, right? Just like when we were in child's pose. See if you can find the same quality, even in this active mobilization, that there's a smoothness to the breath and easefulness. We're going to stay here a little longer with an option to take a half bind. So we're taking that left arm behind, and then in that shape, the hand can be at the sacrum or maybe reaching around towards your right hip. Draw your left ear away, or your left shoulder away from your left ear, and maybe reach your head and neck just a little longer. And you can keep that half bind for a moment as we lift up into triangle, Trikonasana. Reverse. And then let's free the arms as we come into full triangle. You can gaze down to the side or up, honoring your body. Slowly from here, rebending right knee. Inhale through warrior two. And exhale into a low lunge. Listen carefully, lifting left heel, toe heeling right foot out further to the side and lowering left knee once again. This time with this wider stance, so hands are inside of your right knee. You can begin to twist a little bit towards that right leg. Some of you might lift the left foot and reach around or clasp. And exhale, release if you're in that shape. Eventually planting hands, stepping right foot back to meet the left and pressing back downward facing dog. Let's find all of that on side two. Inhale to lift left leg. Exhale, gazing forward, stepping forward. And right knee to lower. We're not here with that knee down too long. We're going to lift up, clasping right wrist, leaning to the left. And just like our curtsy twist, taking right elbow to the outside of the left knee or thigh, and left hand can come to your sacrum here. Right? You might even give it a little tail shape here, little mudra. Okay, you can stay here. You might gaze down. You might lift your right knee. Coming back to breath. And big move. We're going to open and expand and exalt. Lift, lift, lift. That right arm is going to come all the way up. And then around into warrior two, where we settle in for a moment. Reclaim your breath. And from here, inhale, reaching away. Exhale, extended side angle. Perhaps beginning here with arm reaching long, right arm reaching long overhead. And then if you'd like, wrapping around into a half bind. Hand can come to sacrum or reaching around towards your left hip. In this shape, drawing right shoulder away from the ear and letting your neck get just a little bit longer. Perhaps keeping that half bind, taking it with you as we open up into reverse triangle. And then extend, reach long, open the arms, Trikonasana. Softening through your gaze, softening through your left knee. Inhale. And exhale, low lunge into runner's lunge, walking, left toes out to the left, hands to the inside, right knee can lower. You can stay right here. You might take it into a twist, turning towards your left leg. You might bend right knee, reaching around, clasping foot or ankle. Remarkable how sometimes it's these binding shapes and the resistance that offers that helps us open just a little more. And then we soften and release, stepping left foot back to meet the right, downward facing dog. From here, a nice gentle walk to the front of your mat and a halfway lift if you'd like. And to fold. And lifting all the way to side. So we have a little balance sequence here, a fun one. So the first part of it is what we'll call palm tree. And again, I'm going to keep my feet hips width, although you could place the feet together. Just feel out for your body which one helps you balance more. And in our palm tree, in honor of our poem today, we're going to lift up onto the toes. Okay, so you'll lift up here and you might sway a little bit. You might sway in your palm tree in some gentle winds. Okay. And then we'll settle heels back down and we're going to find our way back to that little curtsy twist. Okay. From our curtsy twist, as we lift up, right knee is going to follow. And taking right hand will help place right foot to the inside of left leg. So we're coming into tree. And in this tree, you can, of course, keep it in the upper leg, but you can also come here or here, right, in the lower leg or kickstanding your toes. And invitation to take your arms up overhead. And then from here, bending through your left elbow. We've been here, standing on two legs, taking hold of left elbow with your right arm. Now you can stay here, sending your left elbow back just a little bit more, or you might begin to take this into a little bit of a side bend towards your bent right knee. Continue to reach up through your left elbow. Maybe your right arm releases. It's tricky. It's tricky. And maybe you extend through the feathers, becoming that bird with her feathers dangling down. All right, let's reach, come back to center. And guess what? If you fell out of it, ground's not that far away and you're okay. You shake out your standing leg if you'd like, both legs. We'll find this on side 2. Starts with the curtsy with left leg behind the right. Left leg to lift. You can use your hand to place left foot on the inside of your right leg. You can stay right here. Maybe right arm comes up, bends, hand the nape of your neck. Maybe left hand reaches around. Perhaps coming into that side bend, super tricky on one foot. Beginning perhaps to let the arms find their freedom, your expression. Beautiful thing about balance is that there's no place to be but the present moment, right? As soon as the mind wanders, so does our balance. Coming back here and now, your focus for your gaze, and then slowly, back up to center. 2 feet on the earth. Inhale to sweep. Exhale to fold. Inhale halfway. And exhale. Hands plant. Stepping back, downward facing dog. If you want some fancy transition, take it. Otherwise, we'll meet right here. And we'll find our way into a half pigeon. Inhale, drawing right leg back. Exhale, right knee towards right wrist. And taking a moment here to find your lifted shape first. Often this involves contracting knee towards knee, inner thigh towards inner thigh. Your hips will lift up off the earth. And then for a moment, lift and open your chest, open your arms back. You might choose to clasp them for a moment. In whichever version you're taking, one more breath. And then exhale, settling in. You can rest forehead onto palms, sensing and feeling the interior space that you've created around your heart, shoulders, and hips. And as if you could breathe through a straw that directly connects into your right hip, sending your breath right there. And taking the heaviness of the earth with you as you press into palms, lifting your heart, curling left toes under, stepping back, left to right. And maybe for a moment, out of that contraction, find the opposite, find the opening, lifting back that right leg once again, maybe stacking hips, bending at the knee. Some of you might flip your dog, follow your own instinct. And we meet in downward facing dog. Preparing for side 2, inhale, lifting left leg, knee forward towards left wrist. And before going into resting pigeon, a moment here to lift up and expand. Maybe you clasp hands Drawing inner thigh towards inner thigh, knees active, feeling this lift from everywhere that's in contact with the earth. And then we release, settling in. Breathing into your left hip. Softening and receiving. And very slowly, pressing into hands, enough to lift up, planting hands, curling right toes. And then if you did so on the other side, maybe finding that counter pose, the opening after the contraction, lifting left knee, left hip. And then placing left foot down to the earth. Knees to the earth. And your way, maybe hips to the side, feet around front, your way all the way onto your back. Arriving in preparation for Shavasana, the knees coming close. We're in Bija pose once again on our backs. As arms wrap around knees, hugged in. You might even hug your nose towards your knees. One final contraction. One squeeze right here before sending legs long and opening into the receptive shape of Shavasana. You might scan your body, let your feet fall out wide, legs soft, relaxed, shoulders away from your ears, arms away from the sides of your body so palms can roll up in a gesture of receiving. Let your breath be soft, your jaw be soft, eyes soft. And then let your head be heavy. Arms and legs heavy. Torso heavy. Like someone just brought one of those beautiful, warm, weighted blankets and just wrapped you, cocooned you right there. And I invite you to stay, stay, stay. I'm going to return to some of the words that set our class up from the very beginning. And once again, inviting you to receive the gift of your very own presence as you have cultivated that presence through this practice. Knowing that the time that we take to gather ourselves onto ourselves allows us to then offer the gift of your presence to the world. And I'll share this second poem of Mere Being one more time. The palm at the end of the mind, beyond the last thought, rises. In the bronze distance, a gold-feathered bird sings in the palm without human meaning, without human feeling, a foreign song. You know then that it is not the reason that makes us happy or unhappy. The bird sings, its feathers shine. The palm stands on the edge of space. The wind moves slowly in the branches. The bird's fire-fangled feathers dangle down. Once again, you are welcome to stay and receive and be nourished by the space you've created. And for those of you that are ready or would like to be guided back out, beginning to wiggle your fingers and your toes. Maybe a nice morning stretch, your own intuitive, just like your favorite animal waking up from a nap, just waking yourself up again. Maybe it's evening for you, your evening stretch, right? Eventually rolling to one side, pausing there, lingering. And if you'd like, returning to sitting. Taking a moment, maybe palm to palm in front of your heart or palm over palm, whatever feels more natural. As we bring this practice to a close, so grateful to all of you. Namaste.